I do believe that is our cue. So we will welcome you to our little corner booth here this evening. Garrett Davenport, Griffin Weinberg, and Chad Speaker alongside. Thank you for joining us, whether you're streaming us live on Twitter at MyMo Info Sports or on our YouTube channel, MyMo Info Sports, as well. We're glad to have you with us here tonight. I believe Facebook as well, possibly, is away. That is a no-go, actually.
That is false.
MyMo Info Sports stream, though.
Yes, so, at MyMo Info Sports, our YouTube channel, you'll be able to watch us live as we bring you the show here tonight, recapping everything that happened in Week 3 and looking ahead to Week 4. Our special guest, the Seckman Jaguars tonight. Head coach Nick Baer, a couple of their players will be joining us here this evening to talk about a very excellent start to the season for them. And gentlemen, we'll go around the room to get things started. We are a third of the way through the regular season. General impressions about what we've seen.
It's going by pretty quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We were talking about that. Football season goes by pretty fast, so it is pretty nuts that we're a third of the way through. I've been enjoying my time, trying to get to know some of the football teams and the coaches around the area. A lot of good teams, a lot of really good games going on as well. I have yet to visually see with my eyes in front of me a very close matchup, but I'm sure that we're going to be having a good game coming up this Friday, and we'll talk about that game, I'm sure, in a little bit sometime throughout the broadcast.
I think 21 teams in the regional radio listening area. I know I count at least 9 that are above 500 through 3 weeks, Chad Speaker.
I different parts of the season, you enjoy different things. At the beginning, it's like, all right, who's for real this year? First impressions out of the gate. Some of the players maybe that were role players a year ago are stepping to the fore, things like that. It's at this point of the season, though, that you start to say, okay, here's the record, here's the teams they've beaten, here's the teams they've lost to, and even more so, it sets up matchups. And we'll get into some of those. I'll give you just a for example. I've got a couple in mind this week, but a for example one is St. Genevieve and Potosi. They're both 1-2, right? But couldn't be more excited about the matchup they're generating this week against one another. Potosi's losses so narrow, they could easily be 3-0. St. Genevieve, lost to Valley, no big deal there. Could have beaten Kennett, they could be 2-1. And so you think about what teams have done and then the matchups those set up here in this part of the season.
Yeah, I actually had it wrong. It's 10 teams out of the regional radio listening area that are above 500, but you got a couple right there. Somebody's going to be 1-3 and still be a really good football team. Garrett Davenport, biggest thing jumped out to you this week?
Man, there's some talent around here. I'll tell you what. I mean, I don't know if I can speak for Griffin on this one, but I've just been around these high school teams for a very, very short amount of time, and they have wowed me. Some of these games, I mean, I've been around, Farmington. They've had a good year so far to start out 2-1. I got to see a North County team in their best start in a very, very long time. I got to see a very competitive Perryville and Windsor game, and also got to go out and see some other people that we don't cover in Sykeston. That was a pretty good game as well. So there's a lot of talent around here that I don't think I was able to see back in North Carolina. So there's a good amount of talent over here.
Some good football being played here near the Boot Hill, and we're going to talk about all the games that happened this week. Let's start with the ones that we had for you on regional radio, though, and the closest one of the night was not necessarily pretty, but the St. Pius Lancers did grit their teeth, push through an up-and-down night. They beat the Grandview Eagles 22-12, as heard on AM 1400 KJEF on Friday. It was scoreless for a quarter and a half. Both defenses made plays, but both offenses kind of got in each other's way. There were over 200 yards in penalties combined between the two teams, and that's why it wasn't until about halfway through the first quarter when St. Pius finally got the scoring started. Senior running back Nate Rubel, a 75-yard touchdown run, put his team ahead. They got the ball back, but were facing a 3rd and long late in the first half. That's when they dug into their bag of tricks, and the result of that is that they found themselves doubling their lead just before halftime.
Austin McGuckin comes out, replaced by a new man in the slot as they go 2 wide again on 3rd and 6. Man in motion far side, gets him on a pitch. It's Drew Merciel. He's going to wind up. Played it, caught. Fribble at the 25. Breaks the tackle at the 20. 15, 10, dragged down inside the 5. St. Pius does it. They hit the trick play as they gave it on the receiver reverse to Drew Merciel, and he's able to hit the deep pass play to Eli Fribble on 3rd and 6. Smith. Play fake. He'll roll out as the now throws to the end zone. It's caught. Touchdown, St. Pius. Eli Frimmel, who has the big catch downfield on this drive, comes up with the catch there as Colin Smith stayed with the play, despite being under duress, and he comes up with the TD throw to double St. Pius's lead, 12-0 here at the end of the first half.
Would be a 14-0 deficit at the break for Grandview on their home field, looking for a 3-0 start to the season. They would not back down, though. The Eagle offense finally hit a big play to their star junior, Chase Wilson.
Wing back in motion, far side of the field. They'll fake it to him. Clayton Riddle's going to load up and look to throw. He's down the field. He's got a man. It's caught. 10-5. Touchdown, Grandview. Chase Wilson untouched to the house. 58 yards. And in one fell strike, Grandview finally with the big play is on the board. They've cut the lead in half to 14-6.
This was a team a year ago in Grandview. They're the true hardcore triple option. They try to beat you running the ball. They threw it 12 times, which is more than they had in the first two games combined. And Chase Wilson, their leading receiver in 2020 with 119 yards, he had over 100 yards receiving just in this game. They used him more as a receiver than a runner, and it worked out for the most part as they found themselves only down a score going into the fourth quarter.
You know, Nathan, those spread offenses and those air raid offenses, they almost use the pass too as the run. You know, they'll hit it out behind the line of scrimmage and they'll do quick slant ends. But it's these triple option teams that when they pass it, they want to do it to big effect. They're looking for big explosive plays like that one.
Able to finally hit the shot downfield, which they've been setting up all night long, and that is why St. Pius was only up a possession going into the fourth quarter. However, early in the fourth, they turned to their senior star once again for a crucial score.
They will roll out and throw it. Smith in the gun. Looking downfield, has a man open. It's caught by Rubel. Jukes down a man and around the 15. Breaks a tackle to the 10. Track tacklers inside the 5 and gets into the end zone. Touchdown, St. Pius. Nate Rubel, an absolute stud, and he shows you why as he makes the catch in the middle of the field and then rumbles the last 15 yards or so. It's a 23-yard touchdown catch and run in total to give St. Pius a 20-6 lead here in the opening minute of the fourth quarter.
Grandview scored quickly after that to round up things, but not getting the two-point conversion hurt as they would be down two possessions the rest of the way. Rubel with 185 total yards from scrimmage to go with the 2 TDs was our Applebee's of Farmington player of the game. St. Pius goes to 2-1. Grandview drops to 2-1. The Eagles fell to 1-1 in conference play as well, while St. Pius wins its I-55 conference opener, setting up a very important game with the Jefferson Blue Jays this week on KHF that we will be talking much more about later on in the show. So a very good win for Dan Oliver's team, just on the basis of, again, 133 yards of penalties racked up against themselves, a couple of turnovers mixed in there. They did not play their best ball and still came away with a W. And speaking of best ball, I mean, that here seems to be what happened to the offense over in Potosi on Friday night as the Trojans took down the Fredericktown Blackcats 61-20 on J98. Fredericktown took the opening kickoff into Potosi territory, but the Trojans were not fazed.
Chaney backfield, Marler on his right, 2 receivers to his right, 2 receivers to Chaney's left. Takes the snap, dropping back to pass, looking left. Intercepted by Blake Meesey. Meesey running up, he's got a few blocks. Chaney trying to make the tackle. Meesey gets past him, going up all the way past the 15, the 10, the 5. It's a touchdown. The Trojans have a 6-0 lead.
There's a phrase used nowadays amongst the kids, I say, younger people, but there's a phrase they use, keep that same energy, when they talk about making sure that you show up. If you're acting a certain way, you need to do that later. Potosi kept that same energy that they had on defense on offense.
Taking the shotgun snap and rolling out to his right. Coleman going across the middle, connects with Portell
Reaching all
again.
the young people who listen to
45,
radio.
Working
Did write that in
He's
there, didn't
spun
he?
out of a broken tackle. He's got nothing but country roads ahead of him, folks. Gavin Portell, have yourself a first quarter and a touchdown for the Trojans. An 85-yard touchdown from Coleman to Portell. That's going to make it 26-0 Potosi. 4 minutes and 19 seconds to go in the first quarter.
3 catches, 3 touchdowns, 176 yards in that first quarter. Gavin Portell, 1 week after Blake Meesey was terrific in the receiving end of things in a loss to Farmington Griffin. It is, you could sort of tell why Chad was talking about how they had a lot of energy even after the loss to Farmington. They knew they could move it, and it was Gavin Portell's turn to take the spotlight in that regard.
Yeah, a lot of energy and a lot of depth as well. Said it. It doesn't just have to be Blake Meesey every week catching the ball. It doesn't have to be Blake Henson running for 200 yards every single week. They have another Blake. It's Blake Coleman, their junior quarterback, and he can sling the ball. Their uniforms, they kind of look like LSU out there, all white
Purple and gold,
uniforms.
yeah.
The purple and gold. Listen, you're not going to compare anyone to Joe Burrow or anything like that, especially since, I'm a Cincinnati guy myself. But he threw the ball really nicely. He was very calm in the pocket, and the connection that he had with Portell, the 3 catches for 3 touchdowns in the first quarter, it's all the same play, or at least all the same route. And Portell was just able to get by him. The guy showed off a lot of speed, and you can't have a better first quarter than that. It just makes me think of the Randy Moss picture, and you may see on Twitter.
The Thanksgiving Day game, against the Cowboys.
Yeah. So it is an explosive offense, and they can do it, running the ball, throwing the ball. The defensive side, Blake Macy with the pick 6. It's a very fun team to watch, Nathan.
Yeah, and really to hammer that point home, credit to Jake Whitener's team. They did not give up. They scrapped and clawed, and they were only down by 20 at halftime after being in such a big hole early. And yet, that man who was 3 for 3 in terms of turning catches into scores, he had something to say about that deficit getting cut at halftime.
From the Black Hats 7-yard line. 2 receivers on either side of Coleman. Running back behind him, Blake Hensley. 3 pass to the left. Portell stiff arms him. Walks into the end zone. The power from Gavin Portell. His 4th receiving touchdown of the night gives Potosi a 53-20 lead over Fredericktown.
5 TD passes in total for Blake Coleman, ran for 1 on the ground as well. We talked a lot about this last year, Griff, with how well Dylan Wyrick got that team to play when they were jumping between both Andrew and Blake Coleman at quarterback. This would be the team I would hate to see in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, because they can just catch fire. That's the thing, They can really get in a groove, and I love what Dylan Wyrick is doing with the team. You mentioned it, year 2, but he's got so much energy, and he's a younger guy, and he's just trying to, he's excited. He loves being out there on Friday Night Lights. He loves Potosi. He's a Potosi guy through and through, and what he's doing with that offense is really just giving them a lot of different options to go, and it's very exciting to see.
The most terrifying part about it, though, is it sure looks like they're better, knowing that Blake Coleman is going to be the quarterback full-time this year.
And I'd have something to add with that. I mean, they're 1-2, but they don't have 1-2 talent. They have 3-0 talent. They have, at best, 2-1 talent. So the fact that they're 1-2, I mean, that's kind of criminal for them. But talking at camp with, because I went to go cover them for our summer camps, they're Blake Coleman and his receivers. They just trust each other. And that's what I assume. I haven't seen a Potosi game, but I know Griffin could speak more on this, but it just seems like they have that connection. They have that chemistry, and they're just on the same wavelength the entire game.
Yeah, and I did ask Coach about that. I think I asked him before the game when I was talking to Coach Wyrick, what is the relationship with these guys? Obviously, they probably grew up playing youth football with each other. They hang out with each other. And I asked him, after this 0-2 start where you guys could be 2-0, how do they talk to each other? How do they respond? And just said, everyone's got each other's backs. You make a drop in practice, someone will come up and he'll help you get up. He'll talk you through it. He'll just kind of keep the energy high. No one's really getting down on each other. They are a very close group of people, as I'm sure a lot of these high schools, a lot of the kids around the area are, but it's a very, very tight-knit group, and they're all happy to be out there. And when things are gelling with the way that the Potosi offense was gelling this past game, it just makes everything a little bit better. Winning heals everything.
What'd you see out of the Fredericktown? Like, they had the kickoff return, so they have some explosive guys. But what'd you see out of the offense? A couple of touchdown passes out of a sophomore quarterback to at least respond a little bit.
Yeah, so I was going to save that for whenever we were going through maybe our victories of the week or the bright spots that we saw through the week. But the second quarter for Fredericktown, they were better than Potosi. They lost 61-20. Fredericktown was a better team in the second quarter than Potosi was. I don't know what changed from quarter 1 to quarter 2, or what changed from quarter 2 through the second half of that game as well, when Fredericktown kind of fell apart a little bit. But that second quarter, that showed what Jake Whitener, the head coach over at Fredericktown, is really trying to do with this team. And again, I'll talk about it in a little bit, go more in depth with it. But it was very exciting to see Fredericktown in that second quarter have a very strong offense, and defensively things were going well for them.
0-3 start to the year for the Black Cats, but this was their most competitive performance through the first 3, so definitely encouraging there. Meanwhile, just really to finish it off, Potosi is a 1-2 team with a plus 32 point differential. They came so close the first 2 weeks. Good to see that they're in the win column and do so with authority this week ahead of a very intriguing matchup at home against St. Gen that we are going to talk more about later on. Let's wrap up the broadcast games by telling you about what happened on AM 800 KREI as the Farmington Knights tamed the Bulldogs of Sykeston 31-14 to open up SEMO North Conference play. It was actually Sykeston who struck pay dirt first to take an early lead. A rivalry Farmington is normally dominated saw Sykeston in front. Knights wouldn't falter, though, and were able to answer on the ensuing drive thanks to a sophomore.
So Felker under center takes the snap. He's going to hand it off. No, he's actually going to pitch it out to Jeremiah Cunningham. He's got the sideline and a touchdown.
That's what we like to see. Move the ball right down the field and score right after they score.
The Farmington Young Bucks answered the call again as the new kid on the block that is grabbing all the headlines, the breakout freshman, broke the plane to take the lead.
All runs. The Farmington Knights. Here's Felker under center. Hands it off to Casey McLean. Power running and another touchdown for the Farmington Knights. Casey McLean punches it in.
Nice
2
run.
yards away.
Kept his legs running. Get that touchdown.
2 touchdowns for the Farmington Knights, and that drive.
Shake and Bake was kind of the story in week one, Chad and Garrett with Casey McLean. He was showing off what he could do, getting loose in the speed. I think the last 2 weeks have shown, put him between the tackles, he'll run you over if he feels like it.
Power running. I mean, he puts his head down. And, he's not going to explode for 15 yards, 10 yards, but he gets you those solid 3-yard, 4-yard gains that will help you down on second and third down. So the big part of this team, only a freshman, he can go up from here.
It's going to be really exciting to see what he looks like just by the end of his first year. The Knights did have a little trouble containing one Keandrick Sherrod, who was able to score and tie the game up for Sykeston. However, second half was all Farmington. The defense not only shut out the Bulldogs, but the senior QB of the Knights, Drew Felker, wanted to show off his arm and managed to connect on both of his passes for touchdowns.
Felker rolls out to his right. He has a man open and caught.
Touchdown.
Touchdown of Farmington. What a pass from Drew Felker. His first pass of the game is a touchdown. Jake Bishop got the catch. That's the first time we really heard his number called on this game. And Felker, first pass, good touchdown.
Nice pass.
Back in week one, it was a lot about trying to do what they did last year, which was just hand the ball to the fullback. They could give it on every play to the fullback. And in week one, they tried to feed Braden Berry a lot. Saw Casey McLean emerge. He became more of a featured part in week two. This week, Jeremiah Cunningham's kind of the new thing to watch is he would catch the second Felker TD pass from 23 yards out. Also ran for 163 yards as our Applebee's Farmington player of the game.
Yes, and I also want to give some love to Brady Cook as well. He played phenomenal as well. He had about 143 yards, would have been 153, but an errant pitch kind of went back 10 yards. But he had a phenomenal game. And Jeremiah Cunningham, Brady Cook, they were blocking for each other every time because it was 14-14 at the half, but Eric Krupe saw that Sykeston wasn't playing outside on the numbers. So he said, hey, we're going to pitch it out. You're going to have to beat us running outside. And they couldn't. And it was just great blocking. Every time they pitched it out, Jeremiah Cunningham, Brady Cook was right there.
It's just like Derek Carr last night on Monday night. You play cover zero, you better not get beat up downfield. Otherwise, you can get touchdowns on the board. Farmington head coach Eric Krupe talked with us afterwards and said that key halftime adjustments helped the Knights pull away.
Well, you go in with a game plan, and then with the offense that we run, you've got to determine how the defense is playing you. And we see different things, and a lot of times we'll see something that a team doesn't normally do defensively, and they'll have a different scheme for us. And so once Coach Hain was able to figure out what they were trying to do, they were trying to shut down the first phase, the first couple phases of the option. We were able to get the ball to the perimeter and had a lot of success, especially in that second half.
They did what they want to do, Chad, I think, because a year ago, like I mentioned, just hand it to Braden Botkin straight up the middle, run the dive play 15 times a game. You're going to be in a good spot. If they can get to the edges this year with Casey McLean and now Jeremiah Cunningham, they're going to feel a lot better about their option attack.
Yeah, and they're better when they do that. I mean, 2 years ago, you had the explosiveness of Royce Harris coming off that corner with Bodkin up the middle. And you talk about variety and balance in offensive football, and most of the time you refer to the balance between the run and the pass. In the option game, you can also have balance, but the balance there is the balance that you have up the middle and to the outside. And so most of the time, you can read that as a quarterback, but sometimes, you can lean on that as a play caller too and say, hey, let's focus outside. And what Garrett was talking about is that great adjustment that Farmington made, reading what the defense was doing and finding an alley along the hashes there.
Good to see Drew Felker make some plays throwing the ball since he's moved into that QB spot.
And I was just going to talk about defensively for these Farmington Knights. I mean, we talked about Keotric Sherrod a little bit. Dude's 5'9", 200. He's a sophomore. He was stiff-arming people like Derrick Henry. But it got to a point where it was just group tackling from Farmington. I mean, they just, as a team, they had to take him down. It took 2, maybe 3 guys, but they got it done. They were able to wrap him up, and the quarterback, Heckemeyer, for Sykeston, just couldn't get anything done with that Farmington defense in the second half.
Good to see that D stand up and play as well as they did, especially after the week 1 loss. This is back-to-back weeks where you get a goal line stand and now you play well for 4 quarters. You feel like you're heading places as they get to 2-1, and it's worth noting, when you're in a division with Jackson and the SEMO North, you should hang a banner every year you finish second, and Farmington's done that the last couple of years, so they're on their way with a good start to conference play.
And probably worthy of mention, too, and this is going to happen with a lot of teams throughout the year, Farmington was down a bunch of guys in this ball game. So they had to not only rearrange their lineup, but they had to do it. And we've touched on this a little bit with Farmington early in this year. They had to do it with a lot of freshmen and sophomores because those are their second and third teamers. They were down to their third teamers in some spots because they had some guys missing. So for guys that were seeing not only the first chance for varsity action of their careers, but the first time in a certain position, pretty good job. And maybe part of the reason why you saw Farmington improving throughout that game.
Yeah, guys like Damian Cabrera and Jackson McDowell. Those are 2 guys that I'm thinking of right now. Jackson McDowell came in, played linebacker as a freshman. He made some key stops, and Cabrera got some big stops as well and even ran the football. So just they got a lot of young guys, and there's a lot of good future.
Watching those young pups for the Knights grow up before our very eyes. So,
Squires.
Yeah. Young Squires. I thought you said Flyers. I don't know what's happening.
Confused too.
No. I understand the joke now that I know what you said, but hopefully we'll have some more excellent thoughts like that for you coming up here in just a minute. We're going to take a quick time out. We will run through the rest of the Week 3 scoreboard. Seckman Jaguar is going to join us a little bit later on as well. Stick around. Plenty more to come tonight at the Cole Stratton Equipment Football Roundtable right here on J98. Back tonight on the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable. Coles Tractor and Equipment in Farmington, home of the LS Tractor. Lead the herd, don't just follow. That's Coles Tractor and Equipment on Highway 32 in Farmington. Nathan Gertz, Chad Speaker, Garrett Davenport, Griffin Weinberg with you here this evening from Applebee's in Farmington. I can smell the steaks cooking. I talked to a couple of the players at the Seckman Jaguars. They have already put their orders in for steak, which is a smart move on their part. And we're going to be talking to them a little later. Yeah, Garrett loves his meat and potatoes. You might not want to sit next to him if you come in tonight and eat. It's a bit of a messy show, but the rest of it is pretty great here at Applebee's in Farmington. They'll have the Cardinals on the tube for you tonight in their big game. Get yourself a nice cold drink. It's a great time out here at Applebee's in Farmington.
No lies.
Let's talk about what else happened in Week 3 besides the broadcast games we told you about. St. Pius beating Grandview 22-12. Potosi beats Fredericktown 61-20, and Farmington opens up conference play by beating Sykeston 31-14. Elsewhere, the number of undefeated teams in the regional radio listening area dropped from 5 to 4 because of the Grandview loss. One of those that stayed unbeaten, going to 3-0. Valley Catholic, they beat St. Vincent 56-14. Afterwards, Valley head coach Jed Nagger says the Warriors controlled most of the game.
Kind of weird night. We kind of got off to a weird start, but I think we rushed for almost 600 yards. We held them to minus 50 yards rushing. So, we certainly controlled the line of scrimmage. They made a couple big, plays, but for the most part, I think we were in control.
Really, one special teams gaffe, it sounds like, was all that kept Valley from only giving up single digits for the second week in a row. Another team that gets to 3-0, the Jefferson Blue Jays, as they beat the Herculaneum Blackcats 48-15. Blue Jays head coach Alex Rugley afterwards talking about the win.
We started out all right early and then kind of just rode a little bit of a wave there. And, Hershey made it a good game, made it a 14-8 game. We went up 14-0 after one, and they scored a touchdown on a long run, something that, we had them tackle in the backfield. And unfortunately, we did not tackle very well. And, our kids came out and with a little bit of a sense of urgency the second half and had a great second half, and I was real proud of their efforts.
You can now put the scoreboard watch on the season overall at 139-14 for Jefferson. And yes, they gave up 14 points this week and have given up 14 all season. That's how good it went the first 2 weeks. And then there's the Seckman Jaguars that we're going to talk to here in just a little bit. They were able to win Friday night to get to 3-0, beating Northwest 41-21. And when we talked with head coach Nick Baer on Friday night, he says his team has improved a lot over the last year.
We really developed the ability to open it up a little bit this season. We've already surpassed, I think, our total pass attempts in completions in the first 3 weeks. Cole Rubel, he told me before the game tonight he's going to make sure everybody knows he's a quarterback, not a running back. And he ended up going 7 for 8, throwing 145 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, yeah, and then he ran for 27 carries, 240 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah. Just run-of-the-mill stuff.
Also,
when you run for 400 yards and 5 TDs as a sophomore, these become a regular. I will say, to really hit that point home, he threw for like 79 yards all of last year, and he had thrown for 120-plus through the first 2 weeks. So that was definitely I'm a quarterback, not a running back kind of game.
What's weird is when you're calling a game like that, and if you were, call a Seckman game, when Rubel hits like 250 yards, and you announce he's had an average game.
It's just run of the mill. This is how it goes. We're probably going to get to that point with one Deshaun Welch, too, pretty soon. And the Central Rebels, as an offense as a whole, man, Corey Schweitz has got a juggernaut. Even in a loss last week, they put up 52, and they get to 2-1 this week by putting up a 76-0 win against Perryville. Afterwards, Rebels head coach Corey Schweitz talks about the changes that were made from last week.
We didn't really make any personnel changes necessarily, but we switched three guys that were on our defense. We just switched their positions around, and I think it's probably going to make us a better defense in the long run. I thought we played a lot more disciplined. I mean, I know it was a different offense and stuff tonight, but our reads and what we were doing with our eyes was so much better tonight. We played downhill. It looked a lot different.
We had Corey Schweitz on the End Zone show last week, and that was that 59-52 setback against MICDS, who was the second-ranked team in Class 4. Kent Central plays in Class 3, and it wasn't any type of a moral victory for Central, and I think that's the best news from that one. Corey Schweiss wasn't that happy, and you could tell the Central Rebels weren't that happy. And the bad news was that Perryville had to pay for it, but it may have been one of those losses that ends up making Central a better team. It looks like it. It looks like it was.
And it's worth noting for the explosives that offense is clearly going to put up this year. Not just Deshaun, but it appears Jet Bridges is better at quarterback. Joe Bryant is off to a great start to his sophomore season at receiver. Worth noting, a 59-52 game was squeezed into between now 2 shutouts. So the defense is clearly starting to come around as well. Like the Rebels, another team, they got to 2-1 this season. Hillsborough, they go to Cape Central and win it 41-0. Afterwards, Hawks head coach Bill Saharsky says they came out strong and never looked back.
We played extremely hard on both sides of the ball. We're very physical. Defensively, early in the game, we got 2 big turnovers inside the 10, and right away it was point to that. I think it was 8 minutes into the game, or 8 minutes left in the first. It was 19-0 up, and we got up on them 34-0 at half, and able to punch one in, and got some of the young kids in the game for the whole fourth quarter and everything. So that was good to see and get those kids opportunities.
The Festus Tigers also get to 2-1 by beating Windsor 62-14. The other scores this weekend, St. Gen, a really great effort against a top 10 team in the state, came up just short against Kennett, though, 40-38. DeSoto remains winless on the year by falling to North County 43-0. And then the Fox Warriors dropped to 1-2 as they fall 23-12 at Lafayette of Wildwood. So those are the full week 3 results. Big winners for this week. You've got obviously with the 3-0 teams that we have talked about, and plenty that jumped to 2-1. I am going to go ahead and, with my big winner, take the Central Rebels for the simple fact that that was a second goose egg in 3 weeks. The MICDS game, you can kind of throw that out in terms of how many points you give up indicates whether or not your defense is good. The fact that in those other 2 games against Perryville and St. Vincent, they have taken an opponent that they are better than, and they have completely shut that offense down. That's huge because they were going to be able to move the ball this year. The question is if they can get the stops necessary to get it done. And the first 3 weeks of the season, I think, have been pretty encouraging on that side of the ball. Griff, what jumps out? Big winner for you this week?
I have a couple winners, but number one for a team, I think St. Genevieve is a winner in my eyes. Even though they lost to Kennett by 2, it was a very strong bounce back from that 46-0 loss against Valley a couple weeks ago. I think we were all very interested to see how St. Gen would respond, especially with a new first-year head coach in Jay Pope, and they responded great. You said it, against a top 10 team. They're receiving votes in the state, to get into the top 10. McKinnon's always a very good team, and St. Genevieve, they really had a nice game, and it kind of came up very closely at the end there, but strong bounce back for the Dragons. My other winner is Carter Chaney, the sophomore quarterback for the Fredericktown Black Cats. Strictly because of the fact of what he did in that second quarter. He went from looking like a sophomore starting at quarterback for varsity, a guy who got some reps last year, but his first time as the full-time starter, looks like the sophomore. The second quarter, he looked like Johnny Manziel. And I honestly mean that.
College Manziel.
Yes, college version.
Probably
Manziel.
High school version, too.
Yeah, probably. He was using his legs to create space, to improvise, and to give himself more time and to get receivers open in space. And what he did to that Potosi defense in the second quarter is what head coach Jake Whitener wants to see out of him moving forward. Again, he's only a sophomore. I think next year we're going to be talking about, could this guy be on the dream team as our, the main quarterback? He was very good. He's fast. He just looks so very composed and very calm in the pocket. And even in situations when he had to scramble around a little bit in that second quarter, it's a very, very small amount of play that really made Carter Chaney jump out. But he has a very bright future ahead of him.
Griff, to build on your St. Genevieve comment there, Kennett's a team that has kind of had their number over the past few years, and they were down multiple scores in the second half. And they came back and scored with about 3 minutes left in that one, and it was the 2-point conversion. They were that close to tying that thing up, and just couldn't get the 2-point conversion across.
Yeah, and it's the aggressiveness. You want to go for 2.
You got to tie it up.
Yeah, exactly. You got to go for it, and it just didn't go St. Genevieve's way. So it could have been a different story, but a good bounce-back game for the Dragons.
Plenty of people are looking at that result and saying to themselves, what sort of animal have the Valley Catholic Warriors built this year if St. Gen can do that to Kennett? Chad, your big winner from this week.
Might as well give them a bump and an intro, right? I mean, to me, the second one, Jaguars, because they made, they're making school history every year. They're breaking offensive records. They're doing all, but one thing they didn't do last year, beat Northwest, and they come up with a 3-touchdown victory over Northwest, and that that's a game they really wanted in that conference matchup. So the manner in which they did it too, we're used to seeing them run the ball so well. Now they're passing the ball a little bit too. So this is if last year was version 1.0, this is version 2.0. I mean, they are an improving ball club, and they're going to be a tough out this year, I think, for anybody.
The Lions won the Suburban Orange Bowl last year, largely because before Seckman got hot to end the season, they beat them earlier in the year. So you're right. This matters enormously in terms of starting to check off some boxes of conference championships and all that.
Little honorable mention to Hillsboro for me. I mean, the way you just don't go down to Cape and dominate them. I think Cape's down a little bit. I'll grant that, but you just don't go down there and dominate them the way they did often.
That's the second straight year they've piled up 40-plus points against a Cape team that used to have their number in the state playoffs every year. I mean, that's a sign of the program turning some type of corner, I'm sure, for Bill Saharsky and company. Garrett, big winner for you this week.
Well, I'm going with our two kind of main teams around our area. First, I want to talk about is Festus. This 62-14 victory. It seems like that St. Genevieve game kind of lit a fire under them. You talk about Central, and they're a loss to MICD, whatever. But you guys know what I'm talking about. But that loss really sparked the fire with Central. I think that game against St. Genevieve really sparked this Festus team. You saw it right there at the final score, 62-14. They're a good team and getting to 2-1. And also, I want to talk about Farmington. I just feel like I watched them grow up in front of my eyes. As we talk, they're a young team, but I see them now from that first half to that second half. I saw a lot of maturity, especially from those young guys, like we've talked about, Jeremiah Cunningham, Casey McLean, and some of the veterans, Brady Cook, Drew Felker. Seems like they're starting to mesh, and they're starting to figure out what their identity is. So those are my two winners.
In week 2, a tight game at halftime turned into the last yard determinant. So credit to them. In week 3, a tight game at halftime, they dominate, and definitely want to throw Festus in there because they weren't really even happy with week 2 when they won only 26-12. This, you could tell, was some sort of catharsis to go out there and win like they did.
It's a statement.
Isn't it a shame that we never include Valley in our big winners? And there's only one reason for that. Because you expect it out of them every week.
Well, because they literally are the big winners at the end of the year. So they get the big prizes. So.
But it's almost like if you win your conference every year, you're not going to win Coach of the Year. It's usually things like that are reserved for an improvement team or a surprise, or so. Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why Valley isn't in the conversation as big winners, but there's also a reason to include them each and every week.
Yeah, I'll put it this way with Valley Catholic. Very few times in high school have I ever had someone say, "Would you like to see our trophy room?" Normally, it's a trophy case. No, it's a room at Valley Catholic.
A wing.
It's a small room just full of trophies from decades gone by. This is what they do, and they clearly appear to be back to being a great team once again this season. They have got a matchup this week that could really solidify that we're going to talk more about later on.
That's a fun one coming up.
An excellent game for them on the road. But we want to introduce you to one of the teams who has started 3-0 like Valley Catholic in our area and talk about them a little more in depth. Our special guest tonight are the Seckman Jaguars. Head coach Nick Baer, a couple of his players are with us here this evening, and we're going to chat with them here live from Applebee's in Farmington coming up after a timeout. So make sure you stick around. More of the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable is next on J98. Hey, welcome back. It's Gold Tractor Equipment Football Roundtable on J98. Thank you for tuning in this evening. Always glad to have folks joining us on a Tuesday night from Applebee's in Farmington. We are glad to have with us here in person as well a couple of young men with the Seckman Jaguars. We got 4 teams left that are 3-0 in our area, and Seckman is one of them. Head coach Nick Bayer here. We have a couple of your players as well, Cole Rubel, Robert Frank, and Will Becker. Gentlemen, first of all, thank you for being here, and congratulations, Coach, for all the things that happened to you at the end of last year to get hot, get to a 5-3 season, which is tied for the second most wins, I think, in a regular season in school history.
Yep.
What did you say, first of all, to sort of bring everybody back down to earth and go, hey, none of this will happen again, guaranteed?
Yeah, we talked about all last season, and going into this season, we're not satisfied. And this group, proved that all off season with the work they put in the weight room, and it's shown in these first 3 weeks.
Well, I think the biggest example of that is this last week. You told us on the End Zone show that Northwest game is one you wanted personally, given that it's a rivalry and given what it means for the start of conference play and the stakes for conference play. Mm-hmm. We were listening a little bit to you talking about how you started to open it up this week, throwing it. Do you feel like that was kind of a major difference in the game for you, being able to make the plays you did passing?
Yeah, it definitely played a little bit of a difference in the second half. We were down 1 point, going into the locker room, and, made a few adjustments. And, we were pretty content with grinding it out 3 yards a carry, which we were getting. But we need to score pretty quickly, and we had a few dudes that can do it. So
Cole Rubel, 2 weeks ago, you were our athlete of the week for 350 on the ground and 76 for the air, and you said, I'm going to do even better this week with your best passing game of your career, well over 170 yards, and then ran for another 200. How much fun was it to get to open it up and throw it more this week?
It was a lot of fun, putting in all that work in the offseason and camp, showing everyone that I'm not just a running back, I can pass too, and it shocked a lot of people, I could tell, so that was really fun.
I was about to ask, is there something that you can see? I know, there's the little things like the linebackers, they'll take that quick step forward, the corners are all that, but can you see almost surprise in defenders' eyes, like, wait, they're doing what? They're loading up to throw?
Oh, yeah. Anytime I get the snap, I can see them. He's getting the ball, he's running, but I saw him come up, and Anthony Westervelt, Ty Kitchen, they make plays, and if I get the ball to him, then they're scoring.
Coach, those 2 guys and then also Felix Ortiz have all played really well on the offensive end. Did you get a sense coming into the year this is probably as deep as we'll be at the skill positions?
Yeah, I knew we had weapons, going into week 3 and that those guys could perform on the field. It was just tough those first 2 weeks when we had a guy going for 50, 60, 70 yards, every drive. It just was hard to pass the ball around different guys. But we knew Anthony Westervelt, out there at wide receiver, was pretty much unguardable by anybody that we're going to play. If we can get the ball to Ty Kitchen in space, he can do special things. And with Felix, he's going to pound the ball up in there.
That said, you still want to run the ball between the tackles. And Robbie, I imagine that's just got to be a delight to just run dudes over every Friday.
Pancakes every day. It's so fun.
You gotta. I imagine you got to start going viral at some point. Go on game days, just start chowing down on pancakes and saying, "I'm doing this tonight as well." What would you say is maybe something that's different from this time last year? Because you guys did a lot of things really well last season. What do you feel like makes this even better this year?
This season, having plays that we don't just run every single time, being able to pass deep, short, anything. I think that's basically our biggest weapon this year to surprise teams.
Definitely surprised at the Northwest Lions on Saturday or on Friday rather. And Will, I'm sure on the defensive end, that felt pretty sweet because a year ago they had a senior quarterback, they had senior receivers. I mean, they were an older team, they could move the ball, and they were able to do it enough to beat you guys. This year, you got the job done. What do you feel like was different this year against Northwest?
I feel like we put a lot more work in on the defensive side. We're getting on a lot of guys with to stay more focused during practice and during the games and just be more physical. Just pound it on them. Just don't even let them get an inch.
Is that sort of, given that it's a weird thing to ask, but like you face a triple option attack every day in practice, you see a team that runs it, and your scout team is trying to emulate what the other offense might do, but they're only trying to emulate it. In your eyes, is it one of those things where it's like, as long as I'm big, fast, and strong, I'll be able to compete with anybody we play?
Yeah, I just feel like as long as like those things, big, fast, and strong, we can just beat them to where they need to go and just produce tackles.
It certainly has worked out for you guys through the first through weeks, and now you get to continue on this journey. Give me a little idea, Coach, of just your scouting or overview of the rest of the conference, because Northwest was the old team last year, and that worked out for them. Now it's kind of anybody's game, given how younger they are.
Yeah, for sure. I want to circle back real quick, talk about the offensive line a little bit, just because, going into this season, we were replacing 4 senior offensive linemen, all conference offensive linemen, one of them all state, and that's enough to keep really any coach up at night in the offseason. That was our big question mark rolling in this season. Those were the guys we made sure put the work in all off season, and we've actually had some success these first 3 weeks with 2 sophomore starters in Trent Enlow and Max Sell. Returning starter last season that was a sophomore, Zach Hudson. Matthew Zeller at center. He's been nothing but consistent for us, done a great job. And obviously, Robert last year, great defensive player, suffered an injury, came over to the offensive side of the ball this year because that's where the team needed him. And we're coming up his rear end on every play.
Robbie, I was about to ask, did you get the sense, I'm sure you knew coming into the summer, younger team, I'm moving to that side of the ball, probably have to be a leader, but was there a moment for you in the summer even where you started to see the younger guys, they get it, they understand what they have to do?
Yeah, especially during when we would go out do lineman practices, we'd all help each other out, and they got it pretty fast, especially Enlow and Sell. They would pick up pretty quick on what we were supposed to do play-wise.
Cole, give me a slight estimate. What's the biggest hole you've seen that offensive line open up for you so far? Are we talking? Are we talking? Could you fit an ATV through it? Could you fit a tractor truck through it?
First play to DeSoto. You could probably fit a truck through the hole. It was beautiful.
I'm sure that just makes it all the more easier. The first 3 yards, they're there for you.
Yeah, it's just so much more confidence in the game at that point. Knowing that your line's going to grind it out, first play to the last play. It feels good to have a line just like last year. I mean, we had a really tough line last year. Younger kids stepping up this year. They're doing a hell of a job for sure.
What has been, I'll let each of you answer, what has been the one thing, it's been a great start, but I'm sure there are things that you're critical of yourself and you say, I have to get better here. What's the one thing for each of you you're already saying, I want to be better in this by week 4?
Definitely passing wise, putting the ball in the right spot, almost consistently. Hitting the hole when I need to and not cutting it, not bouncing it out, staying in the hole as long as I can, to maybe go get, 8 or 9 yards. Don't have to be a touchdown every time. Coach Bear said that. But yeah, just trusting, having a lot more trust in my blockers and not trying to make special plays every play.
Will, what's the biggest thing you want to improve on defense?
Probably open field tackling for sure. I feel like we do really good in spots that are more confined, and we also do good with open field. But I mean, we can't let kids break it out and have a big play and then have to catch up to them and have one guy on top of them. We need to get hats on hats and just have a lot of people out there to make that tackle.
Robbie, biggest thing you want to see improved for yourself and really the whole offensive line?
I'd say for the most part, I need to work on reach blocking. And for the entire line, probably our pass setting would be the most important improvement for week 4.
It's definitely things that can take a good team and turn them into a great one. And, Coach, I'm sure that's the thing you probably have told the guys just in general is, hey, this is a terrific start, but we feel like you can go even further.
Yeah, we've definitely had that conversation a few times. I know these guys talk about wanting to continue to improve the pass game. We've been pretty efficiently up to this point. I think we're 14 for 17 with 5 touchdowns. And the way our style is we're running the football to win the game and we're throwing it to loosen you up. So that's definitely something that if we keep improving on, those things could change.
We'll see how it goes. You got Hazelwood Central on Saturday. General impressions so far?
Yeah, Hazelwood Central, Class 6 school. They're, I believe they're ranked in the state. In Class 6, we know we're running into a good football team. They just beat a very solid Eureka team last week. And, hey, our first 3 opponents, they're all very good opponents, but we know this one, if we take these guys down and kind of get everybody buzzing, put a little respect on the name for sure.
It would definitely change things just in the sense that this time last year, this was when the winning streak started up until the postseason, and now you've been off to a strong start. What have you guys all as players, and I'll start with you, Cole, what are the things that have already jumped out to you this week about it? Like, hey, specifically this I'm going to have to do to beat Hazelwood.
Definitely focus more in practice. Not joke around, take every play seriously, game situation. Definitely for the offense. We're installing some new plays. We got to have a better focus period every single day. That's really about it. I mean, just focus more up in practice.
Will, what do you feel like defensively you guys are zeroing in already here early in the week?
Same sort of thing with the focus part of it. I mean, we're always on each other about staying disciplined and staying focused, and then we need to work better on getting to that pass coverage and stuff. Because I mean, as we know, that they're a more pass heavy team, so we just need to stay there and work on keeping our guys in front of us and not letting them break out.
Robbie, you're the old man of the group up front. Those young guys have done well for the first 3 weeks. What do you tell them about the fact that, hey, you're only a third of the way here?
I'd say for the most part, we got to focus on our hand placement and try not to slip off our blocks when we don't get movement on them up front.
It has whatever you guys have been able to do has worked out well, and we'll wrap up by going around the table for everybody here because 3 is halfway to, I'm sure, what has been sort of the magic number of 6 that you've talked about. What would it mean for you to be able to get to that point or go even beyond it? And Cole, I'll let you start.
That'd be amazing, actually. Just knowing that this team, we're young. We're not. We got 5 seniors, being 6-0. It'd be a great feeling for sure.
Well, what would it mean for you?
Same sort of thing. I mean, I know we can do it, but it's just the putting in the work part of it that we need to keep up with, and just it's awesome just to see if we can get there.
Robert, what would that 6th win mean?
I would be ecstatic to be able to leave that type of legacy behind in my last season.
Coach, you used the phrase at summer camp, leave Seckman football better than you found it. That 6th win would certainly be quite a legacy for this group to leave.
Yeah, no, for sure. If you can't tell, focus was kind of a topic of conversation at practice today. One of those Tuesday, week 4.
It sounded like a buzzword.
Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Well, it was one of those Tuesday, but hey, we have an extra day of practice this week, with the Saturday game in the city against Hazelwood, and we'll be definitely be better this week. When you talk about getting to that, that 6th, 7th win, one thing that's made us pretty successful is focusing 1 week at a time. I know, and this was me looking forward too, but one of the goals for us right now is a conference championship. No team in school history has been a conference champion in football, and beating Northwest was definitely a step closer to that last week. We still got Melville, Webster, and Parkway South on the schedule, and a big rivalry game against Fox. That we want that one. It's only been about 15 years, so.
We'll get it.
I was about to say, the last time I went to go see the Fox Warriors training for all the things they've accomplished, the first thing I saw was the Beat Seckman T-shirt. So I imagine that's going to have a little bit of a fire around it. I'm really looking forward to being there in person for that.
No doubt.
Thank you so much for stopping in tonight. Congratulations on a great start, and best of luck on Saturday.
Hey, thanks, guys. We appreciate the coverage and the meal.
Yeah, thank you,
guys.
Yeah, always glad to have all of our teams out here, including Seckman Jaguars joining us tonight. Nick Bayer, their head coach. Cole Rubel, Robbie Frank, and Will Becker as well, representing their teammates here tonight. We're going to take a timeout. We'll be right back with the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable here on J98. Back live from Applebee's in Farmington. This is the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable. It is on J98 The Boots, KTJJ Farmington Festus. I'm Nathan Gertz, Chad Speaker, Davenport, Griffin Weinberg. I pointed at the wrong people.
Griffin's
I said their names
stomach
right.
is growling. I've been sitting by him.
Yeah, Gary. Yeah, Griffin is the one who's got a rumbly in his tumbly, and we'll take care of Winnie the Pooh.
Gonna get one of those sloppy steaks that Garrett usually eats whenever we get here.
We had two different guys from Sackman order steaks, so apparently it's popular and for good reason. I'm grabbing the quesadilla burger when we get done here.
Thinking about that too. That is good stuff.
I love that quesadilla burger. That Mexi Ranch sauce.
Oh yeah.
Let's stop talking about food now. My stomach's rumbling even
we got
louder.
30 minutes.
You want to talk about football? You want to talk about football?
Sure, why not?
We can talk about football. It's not like it's in the name of the show or anything.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Week 4 schedule, and we'll get to our broadcast games a little bit later, but we want to go through everything else that is happening here this weekend, starting with the ranked teams that will be on the schedule. The Central Rebels jumped up to number 10 in Class 3. They're going to be hosting Cuba this weekend, and a really titanic showdown happening as well for the Valley Catholic Warriors as they go to number 4 in Class 3. They'll play the number 5 team in Class 4, St. Dominic, this coming Friday night. Also on the schedule, Festus is at DeSoto. Fredericktown travels to Perryville. Really intriguing matchup of 1 and 2 teams with St. Genevieve and Potosi. St. Vincent heads to Herculaneum over in the I-55 Conference. Crystal City is hosting Confluence Prep. Over in the Suburban Conference, you've got Northwest playing host to Marquette and Fox entertaining Pattonville. And then we have some Saturday games this week as well. As mentioned, the Sackman Jaguars are headed to Hazelwood Central. Grandview is going to host Russellville Saturday. Windsor is going to make the trek across the state to play Northeast High School in Kansas City Saturday too. It is kind of a mixed bag of games. There are some conference matchups in there, and then there's a couple of non-conference games. I would say, though, first of all, the thing that has to jump off the page is Valley Catholic going to St. Dominic. Chad, you saw that team last year, as a matter of fact. I'm sure they looked like they had the potential to head some places in Class 4.
They're a very good ball club. And in fact, it was one of Farmington's thrilling games that they had last year. Farmington beat them with 14 seconds left. In fact, Farmington drove all the way down the field, about a 6.5-minute drive, scored with 14 seconds left. They were down 7 when it started. They kicked the extra point. Offsides, St. Dom on the extra point. They take the point down, go for 2, and win it. St. Dominic had a great sophomore running back, but they still had a very nice quarterback, good balance. Judd Negger on the End Zone Show said St. Dominic has 99 players and 14 sets of uniforms. So that's a lot of uniforms. He said our school has 93 people in an entire school. So, he kind of set himself up as the underdog. I don't know if I agree with him as the underdog, but I think it's a really nice matchup. Valley Catholic going on the road, and I always love to schedule the Valley plays. I mean, from Valley will go play. I remember one year Westran met them in the state title game. They played Westran in the regular season the next year. Skyline quality ball club. I think they go out of their way to make sure that they're tested as well as they can be, so that when they do get to the playoffs, they're battle tested and ready to go. And to me, this is one of those big matchups like they've had in the past of teams that are either ranked in the state or just quality teams.
Even last year, first year up in Class 3, in the middle of the pandemic year, what do they do late in the week? They say, hey, number 1 Blair Oaks, you want to come down to town? We'll play ball.
Yep.
And then got that win in a very weird game.
Turned it over 6 times and still won that game.
Still won that football game. I do sort of wonder, though, we learned pretty quickly how good the team they ran into in the playoffs, St. Mary's, was. That's the team that's just above them in the state rankings. I would very much like to know if we're going to see St. Mary's work their way to one where Blair Oaks has been at one point here this season.
And you mentioned St. Mary's, Nathan, and I know it's early, but 3 games in, St. Mary's actually is the number 1 seed in Class 3 District 2. That's the district that Valley resides in. Valley is second there, so they could meet, in the 3rd round of the playoffs if it worked out that way, and the seeds held. St. Gen number 3 in that district, by the way.
Yeah, that'll be a really, really fascinating a district that year, just in terms of maybe Valley and St. Gen somehow end up meeting in the district semifinals or beyond. Anything about the schedule that jumps out to you this week, Griff?
I'm just excited for another slate of high school football, Nathan. I love it. The past 3 Friday nights have been awesome. They've been electric. It's going to be a lot of good games out there. And we talked about it at the beginning of our round table, but it does feel crazy that it's going by so fast already. We're going into week 4. But I'm just excited for everything for this Friday. Very good game that I'll be at this Friday.
Griffin's got to me, Griffin is the common denominator in my favorite two matchups.
Oh.
And we'll talk about our broadcast games, of course, coming up. But one of them, of course, Hillsborough in North County that Griffin will call. But Griffin just called Potosi, and the week before that, Griffin called St. Genevieve. And I think we touched on it a little bit earlier. But Griff, maybe get your read on a couple of those teams that you've seen, St. Gen and Potosi. I think that's a great matchup this week.
That is going to be a very good matchup. I don't know. I couldn't give like a prediction on what the score would be. I was thinking about that before we came back on the air. It could be a low-scoring affair. It could end up being like a 55-50 or something kind of ball game. We know what Potosi's offense is capable of, and now we know that St. Genevieve can put up a lot of points too, 38 against Kennett. It's going to be a very fun game. Two young coaches, two teams who are very, very skilled in a lot of different areas, and two teams with a lot of young skill players.
We got pretty close to 30 points aside when they played Farmington. I wouldn't be surprised if that Kennett St. Gen score reflects what we get between the Dragons and the Potosi Trojans on Friday night.
There's so much to account for, right? On both offenses. I mean, you have a guy go for 200 yards rushing against Farmington. You turn around the next week and a receiver that was kind of an afterthought in that one. 3 grabs for almost 180 yards receiving against Fredericktown, and
four touchdowns.
Ended up with 4, 3 in the quarter. So there's just a lot to account for, and St. Genevieve doesn't just get their points only one way either. So it could be maybe a game of adjustments, or maybe another star that comes out of the woodwork. Somebody else pops up that maybe is a big weapon in that one. I don't know.
Yeah, and I am kind of curious. What kind of adjustments that Dylan Weidrich with Potosi would have to make, just because there wasn't too much of that I saw this past Friday. He didn't have to adjust too much against Fredericktown. I don't know what the first couple of games were like for him. I know that Jay Pope does a very good job of preparing, sometimes over-preparing. We talked about that during his first game, watching just hundreds of hours of film, anything that he can get his hands on. And he's under Judd Nagar as well, a guy who's known for making great in-game adjustments. So I think that is a good point, Chad. It could be a game of adjustments. Who's going to be able to make the necessary changes for his team in order to win?
The adjustments, and Potosi, I think, cleaned it up, Griffin, your game. But the adjustments for me that Potosi's going to have to make is just playing clean football. Against Farmington, they threw an interception in the end zone. Penalties cost them dearly against Farmington, including they threw a go-ahead touchdown late in that game, and a penalty cost them in that one on a misalignment. So just playing clean football is going to be, to me, very important.
Yeah, penalties were big in the Potosi-Fredericktown game as well. It seemed like every other play there was a penalty thrown. So, yeah, they're going to have to play clean if they want to come out with a victory.
Flags can often or break a game. Garrett, this weekend, I tend to sort of zero in when I look at the matchups. St. Vincent and Herky's going to be a conference game, which will be interesting. We've got one that we'll talk about that you're going to call Jefferson and St. Pius, but I would simply keep my eye on the Festus Tigers. Have not only won back-to-back games, they exploded, as we talked about offensively, but they win this game, they're halfway to a conference title again. They'll be 2-0 in league play.
Yeah, they'll be 2-0 in league play. They'll be 3-1 since losing to St. Genevieve at the beginning of the season. And, I mean, I understand that these last 2 games for Festus aren't really very difficult, but also it's just a big confidence booster for them. So I expect them to honestly win this game against DeSoto. But something I have circled on my schedule is, teams with not a beautiful record, but this game could be really big for both of these teams. And that's Fredericktown and Perryville.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this really is a kind of a statement game. This is where where the season is going with Perryville. They're 1-2. They can get to 2-2, 500 record, and they are better than they think they are better than the record shows. And they had to run into a very, very good Central team that just came off a loss. So that was a lot writing on the wall for that game for Central, and they just came out with a fire. And this Fredericktown team, as Griffin said, they have some great players. A good team at times. So see if they can put it all together for 4 quarters.
Waiting on the development of that sophomore quarterback, seeing how it goes. And I'm sure the folks over in Perryville, based on how well they played defensively in week 1 and still lost, they probably think they should be 2-1.
And I want to add this with the St. Genevieve and Potosi, both teams coming in 1-2. Neither of these teams need to be 1-2. And one of these teams is going to be 1-3.
That's the weird part.
And that's just That's criminal for both of these schools. I mean, they should not be 1-3. But at the end of the day, something's got to give. And I'll tell you what, I wouldn't want to play either team at 1-3.
Good luck to the 3 seed who gets them in the first round of the district playoffs. The loser of this game, you are in for it by season's end. So lots of great matchups there on the schedule. We've got 3 other games to talk about that we'll be broadcasting on regional radio. We're going to take our final time out when we come back. Get you a Mizzou Tiger update and also talk about those games. That's next on the Kohl's Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable right here on J98. Back one last time on the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable, our post-week 3 into week 4 edition of the show. Appreciate you being with us. Let's get you a little Mizzou update. Missouri Tigers football falling to the Kentucky Wildcats Saturday night, 35-28. Really a strong effort by Eli Drinkwitz's team, all things considered. It was a valiant comeback effort in the second half, too, but wasn't to be. They couldn't convert a 4th and 13 with 1:30 left to go. Hunter Bazelak had a very nice night at quarterback, 294 yards and 4 touchdowns through the air. Tiger defense just didn't stop the running attack of Kentucky, and head coach afterwards saying it was a tough loss for his team, but they have a lot of faith they'll be able to have a successful season.
Lot of football season left, whole heck of a lot of football season left. And I tell you what, I saw a bunch of fighters in that locker room, fighters on the sideline, and that's a football team that's going to continue to improve and get better. They're going to fight to improve and get better. I don't know how many games we're going to win, but I know we're going to fight.
Really a strong night for the Tiger offense, and Kiki Chisholm at wide receiver in particular, working with Bazelak, just could not slow down Chris Rodriguez running the ball. Kentucky had 340 yards in total on the ground, and so Mizzou drops its conference opener, falls to 1-1 overall. They've got the annual in-state rivalry, or what's become the annual in-state rivalry, with Southeast Missouri State this Saturday. Pregame will start at 9 o'clock in the morning. Kickoff is at 11. You can hear it on AM 800 KREI and also on AM 1400 KGF. So that'll be a fun way to start your Saturday, and we have a lot of fun matchups lined up for you to bring you for your Friday night as we look at our Week 4 broadcast schedule here on Regional Radio, and we will start on AM 800 KREI. Chad Speaker. Farmington loves to mix and match a little bit with the scheduling, and they do that here when they bring a traditional Class 1 powerhouse to town in Hayti, currently ranked number 4.
I like the fact that Farmington just looks for good people to play, and it really doesn't matter what class. You got, St. Dom last year, their Class 5 team this year, Ladue, Lutheran North, some of the teams up north, Parkway West that Farmington has played, good quality opposition. In this case, you got Central Class 3 who's ranked, but, Hayti is a Class 1 team, right? So does that mean they're bad? I don't think so. I think they're a good team no matter what, but they are in Class 1. So it's going to be, as you scout them out, how good are they? Because you're watching them play competition that is, in the smaller classes. Now, they haven't been tested yet. They've scored 40, 54, and 56 points, and they've blown everybody out. So what's going to happen when they move up to Class 4 Farmington? We'll see. They've got terrific athletes, though, and it starts with their quarterback, Trayvon Thomas, a guy that is receiving college offers, 6'2", 190 pounds, really has a nice arm. He puts it on a dime from 45 to 50 yards out. Kind of a Lamar Jackson light at the high school level because he can really tuck it and run. If you spread out to stop their sweeps to the outside, if you bite on the inside with their handoffs, he's a guy that really can get it done with his feet. If you drop into coverage, it creates gaps for him to run as well. And Hayti, as you said, they've been a traditional power. And in fact, their latest head coach, Dominique Robinson, has gone 37-6. This is his 5th year. He won the state title in 2018. So I don't care what class you are. It's a good ball club that Farmington's going to face this week. Last year, Farmington didn't really establish their ground game until about week 3. They started to get it going against Sykeston, and then week 4 against St. Dominic, their ground game was really up and running. They appear to have turned the corner last week against Sykeston. Again, they're going to do a little shuffling along their lines, and Eric Krupe feels like, hey, I think we're going to have our best ground attack so far this year, this week. So I think it's going to be maybe some of the athleticism of Hayti against maybe the system and the toughness and the physical play of Farmington. That's how I look at the matchup this week.
You would think this is the week, 3 weeks in now, where guys like Cunningham and McLean and Brady Cook, they're finally settled into the idea of
comfortable with their roles, right?
Being every down players on offense. Hopefully that shows up. I got a chance to talk to Coach Robinson 2 years ago when they played Valley for another district title, and he's built a winner. You can see why the kids converged on him. I think Trayvon Thomas, I want to say junior or senior. I had a chance to watch him.
He's a senior this year.
Yeah, I had a chance to watch him 2 years ago. He was in that Lamar Jackson mold physically too, and you could tell if he ever figured it out as a passer, they'd be a world of hurt for opponents.
And he's got alligator arms it a little bit of a shotgun type of delivery, but he delivers it. From 45 out, he can hit guys on the numbers. So he's figured that part out. He's an all-state basketball guy, so he's one of those all-around, athletic talents down there at that school.
That state title team in 2018, largely heralded by a guy, I forget his name, who went on to be a running back at Indiana briefly before transferring down to SEMO. So they can produce the talent that will keep the Farmington Knight coaches certainly up awake
And
this
Nathan,
week.
I want to add this when it comes to Farmington. We didn't mention a guy in Drew Felker who's really started to get comfortable leading this offense. He made a lot of great, smart decisions, great reads against Sykeston, and, of course, those 2 touchdown passes. He threw it on a dime. Now, he's not a guy known for passing the football, but he can pass it.
He's really good in the leadership category, too. He's a guy that's played. He's been in the system all 4 years, played major minutes as a sophomore. He's an academic all-state kid, so he's
Smart.
a really good leader on this team. Yeah.
Good leadership and just a smart guy.
Good to see he's settling into his new role running the offense. Garrett, you'll get to see one of my favorite occurrences on the calendar in Jefferson County every year on AM 1400 KJF. The Jefferson Blue Jays have risen all the way to number 6 in the state in Class 2. They get to play their crosstown rivals from St. Pius in Festus Friday night. To say these two teams do not like each other is an understatement. There's a bit of vitriol there. They know each other exceptionally well, meeting up year in and year out. And I would say that there is that added extra layer this year because the last time they met was the only time they met in 2020, and it was Jefferson's just outright rolling over St. Pius 34-zip in the postseason. Talking to some folks around the Lancers this week after they lost to Grandview, they're hurt. They're still very much hurt by that one.
34-0, you would be hurt after a game like that. But also look at this Jefferson Blue Jay offense. They're really, really hard to stop. They are absolutely loaded. They got, let me just do the math right here. They got 5 players over 100 yards on the season. They're just hard to stop. So I'm looking at this game right here. And for St. Pius, their best defense will be their offense. They have to keep the ball in their possession, cannot make mistakes. We talked about your game, the other game that you call with St. Pius and Grandview, cannot put themselves in bad field position with the penalties. They got to get first downs. They got to milk the clock as much as possible because I'm telling you what, if you get the ball in Drew Brees' hands, it's going to get in the end zone.
This is the kind of Jefferson team. You asked what sort of athletes do they have. Colton Richardson at tight end last week alone runs for a score, throws for one, throws for a score, catches one, scoops up a fumble for a touchdown as well.
The weird trifecta right there.
Yeah. He was close to the grand slam if he had ran for one as well. But just terrific athletes that Alex Rugley has put on the field there for the Jays. I'm so impressed with how they haven't slowed down from that semifinal team a year ago. In fact, they are arguably better just based on the numbers.
And I would say this against, at least for St. Pius, this is probably the best offensive team that Jefferson will have faced this season because they got a guy, his name Nate Rubel.
Mm-hmm.
He is hard to stop. He's hard to tackle, and he's going to be a force that Jefferson hasn't seen this season. So I'm interested to see how the defensive scheme matches up, but if they can stop Nate Rubel, I don't know, we might see a repeat of last year.
Rushing and receiving touchdown against Grandview, fresh off a season where he led the Lancers in rushing and receiving in 2020. And yet, these are some really good games. The heavyweight title fight of the night might be happening over in Bonne Terre. Griffin Weinberg over on J98, the Hillsborough Hawks and North County Raiders meet. This was a good slobber knocker when they met in the regular season. Tried to say slobber knocker and it came out slobber fest. I'm salivating over this game, suffice to say, because after that great regular season meeting where Hillsborough pulled away, North County went into the Hawks' nest and were able to get a playoff victory. And from what I heard talking to Hillsborough kids this summer, they have not forgotten that part at all. I heard Bill Saharsky say North County's name out loud during training camp. They have been building towards this particular road trip.
Sounds a lot like a Michigan-Ohio State kind of rivalry, like in the not the clubhouse for Ohio State, but in their football facility where they have everything.
The countdown clock,
the countdown clock for Michigan. It's on the wall, and especially when it comes against or during Michigan week, they go around campus and they put an X over all the M's anywhere that you'll see on campus. So I'm not sure if that's exactly how this rivalry is shaping up, but from what I'm hearing from what I'm hearing from you, Nathan, and from everything that you guys have been telling me about the history of these two teams, I'm very excited for it. Very, very excited for this game this Friday. Not just because it's the rivalry, and a rivalry game is always good, but it's going to be a close matchup as well.
Garrett, you've been around this North County team. If they had their druthers, they'd give it to Job Smith every play and run between the tackles. Hillsboro's in the same boat with Jackson Patterson and Austin Romaine, and even some guys like Peyton Brown, who's off to a great start to his sophomore season. That's not always going to happen this week. It's going to come down to the quarterbacks in this one. Nolan Reed for North County and also Griffin Ray for Hillsboro, making a couple of plays through the air.
Yeah, and that's, I know this North County team better than I know this Hillsboro team, so I can just speak on that. Nolan Reed hasn't had to throw the football at all. I mean, it's just, he's a fantastic runner. Don't get me wrong, him and Job Smith have been a dynamic duo in the backfield when it comes to running the ball. But Nolan Reed, at least from what I've seen, he hasn't had to throw it. So I'm definitely interested to see when it comes to facing that adversity and making that big play that big-time quarterbacks do. What can Nolan Reed do in that face of we're down 3. We got to go score right here. I got to make some throws. We got a minute 15 left on the clock.
Ryan Jones is not afraid on the offensive side, and I love it about him, to game plan around his best player. Against Festus last year, a game that came so close to winning, Nolan Reed had his best night throwing the ball, mostly because they lined Carter Kekek up wide, and they said, we're going to give it to him every play, no matter what. Don't be surprised if Job Smith sneaks out wide at some points in this game. They're going to look to try and probably give him the ball in unconventional ways to move it down the field. Hillsboro, conversely, they got a guy in Austin Romaine who can catch it as well as he can throw it. I would feel like this is one of those nights where he touches it as much as possible.
Oh, definitely. It's one of those things where I go back to North County. And I said they don't have that Carter Kekek kind of guy.
Yeah,
but Hillsboro does. So it gets to the point if it goes through the air, there's a lot of question marks when it comes to this North County offense. That's why I trust Romaine and his connection with his receivers just a little bit more.
Yeah, it's going to be one of those games for Ray and for Reed running those offenses where you get to really shine at that quarterback position, whereas you might normally be the quote-unquote field general, just taking care of business.
You know, in a close matchup, too, you think about if the defenses and offenses are equal, maybe the third phase has something to say about it. And
Job Smith can make things happen in the third phase.
He's brought a couple of punts back this year, too, and those could be not only field flippers, but game changers, too.
Those two teams also not particularly adept in kicking, so you're going to want to score touchdowns in this one. I cannot wait to see how that one plays out in Bonne Terre.
I'll let you know how it goes.
Yeah.
And talking about how good Job Smith is, he is currently 1 touchdown behind Cole Rubel. He has 8 touchdowns, tied with Deshaun Welch. He's up there, one of the best runners, scorers in the state of Missouri.
One of the highest totals in the St. Louis area, those 8 TDs. He has been off to an awesome start. We'll see if he keeps it going. Hillsboro and North County will come your way as the J98 game of the week. It will be a dandy on 98.5 FM. You can hear the Farmington Knights on AM 800 KREI as they host number 4 Hayti out of Class 1. And the Jefferson Blue Jays put that unbeaten start on the line when they go crosstown to play the St. Pius Lancers on AM 1400 KJEF. It is as good a slate of games as we have had for you this season, and we hope that you tune in to listen to them all. The Fleeks Equipment pregame show will start your football Friday at 6 o'clock on all regional radio stations. We cannot wait to bring those games to you. We can also not wait to chow down on the delicious food here at Applebee's in Farmington, so we are going to sign off. Thank you again to Amy Cousins and crew for hosting us here at Applebee's. Thanks to head coach Nick Bayer and a couple of his players, Cole Rubel, Robbie Frank, and Will Becker, for joining us tonight from the Seckman Jaguars. Thanks to our sponsors, Coles Tractor and Equipment in Farmington, for making this show possible all season long. And thank you to you, the listener, for tuning in. We'll be back next Tuesday night at 6 o'clock. Hopefully you'll join us then. But until then, for Garrett Davenport, Griffin Weinberg, and chat speaker, I'm Nathan Gertz saying good evening. Thanks for joining us tonight. You've been listening to the Coles Tractor and Equipment Football Roundtable on J98.
The Sunset Park Bandstand in Festus is the